Hello everybody, Simon Dixon here. Hopefully you can hear me okay. I'm just checking out the live chat. We were just trying to figure out how I'm going to be sharing my screen because we presented a beautiful presentation. Today we're going to be discussing the top 10 investors in crypto. And we have had a Zoom nightmare. I know that Zoom has kind of taken over the world and all businesses have gone virtual and the whole world is figuring out how to use Zoom as their office, but unfortunately we got double charged and they downgraded us to a free account, and so it kicks you off after 40 minutes. So we're just going live on YouTube today, and at the same time I'm going to try and figure out how to share my screen, and I'm not sure I can do that on the setup that we actually have, but if not, we'll just you'll just have to look at my pretty face. And we'll do it from there. So let us know if you're viewing live. We'll wait for a few of the viewers to come in. Another technical fun part of this is I believe we've been shadow banned by YouTube. So some of you, let us know, did you get an actual notification from YouTube when we made this live? If you're a subscriber to my channel and you've hit the bell symbol, you're meant to actually receive a notification from YouTube. But I believe that all people discussing Bitcoin and crypto are getting shadow banned to make it difficult for us to share content. So let me know. I'm just looking at the live chat. Let me know when where you're actually listening in from. A few more people will be arriving soon. We normally have a couple of hundred people at this point, but hopefully some of you got an email and you'll be joining us shortly. And I'm just going to have a quick search around just while we're doing that. Azad should be helping us moderate as well, but he's actually joined on a separate link, so his voice might actually be a bit quiet, but hopefully a few more coming in. Welcome everybody. Great to see the chat moving. That means some people are actually seeing this. Give me a second and I can figure out if we do have a share screen. I'm just going to play around with a few buttons, and it may not be a feature of the particular setup that we've got. So instead, maybe we'll give this presentation another go sometime, but we spent the day doing that, but it's all good. So today what I wanted to do is actually discuss a topic that was suggested from the live chat, and that is discussing the top 10 investors in crypto. So rather than go through the slides, I'm just going to use those as my notes then, and share with you a bit of my feedback on the investors, and then I'm actually going to summarize it into 3 things that all of these investors have in common, so that you can actually decide if there's something useful that you can learn from that. So I am just going to jump straight in with the top 10. And really, the top 10 doesn't mean that I think they're the greatest investors. It just means that they've done some things. They've achieved significant wealth in the crypto market. Most of them I've met over the years, and many of them I met from humble beginnings. So these are all people, or many of them were self-made. They made all their wealth in the Bitcoin market, and I'll share some perspectives that I've got from that. So the very first one that we're going to actually cover before we actually go through what they've all got in common is Joe Lubin. So Joseph Lubin is, I think, from my perspective, we'll never actually know in crypto. You never actually reveal your wealth. And most people have got good money management and they've got multiple wallets, so you can't really track it on the blockchain once you've achieved that certain level. But Joseph Lubin, he made his wealth by really being involved in the crypto community, and really he was part of the founding team of Ethereum. And so Ethereum is the second largest cryptocurrency in the market. And you'll notice that once they got into Bitcoin, they reallocated some of their Bitcoin into a particular project. And Joseph Lubin's project that he picked was, he was around when Vitalik Buterin was pivotal coins and smart contracts on Bitcoin. and decided to pivot to their own blockchain. And one of the people, it was mainly the crew that started working on Ethereum. It was mainly done out of Canada. And Joseph Lubin was one of those people. And then as a founding, probably token holder within Ethereum, Ethereum is not like Bitcoin where it was all mined into existence. And there was a certain part of it that was pre-mined and allocated to the founders and the Ethereum Foundation. And the Ethereum Foundation was a not-for-profit set up to distribute these tokens, but a lot of them were the reward for the founders that were originally working on this project. Now, Joe Lubin then took a significant portion of his wealth that he made in Ethereum and founded a company called Consensus. And Consensus was investing in many of the companies that were building technology for the Ethereum ecosystem. Significant projects that are part of the Ethereum ecosystem came out of Consensus. And then he goes on to invest in lots of private equity. So started in Bitcoin, got involved in the right place in the right time with Ethereum, used that to create a company that was funding a lot of the Ethereum-based startups, and then started to diversify widely. So Joseph Lubin, I believe, puts him as one of those top investors for making some of those moves. The second one that I have on the list is CZ, Xiaozing Zhao, which is the founder of Binance. So if you don't know his story, CZ was involved in an exchange, one of the early exchanges. So most of the exchanges, the largest ones, came out of Asia originally. And he was part of, there were 3 exchanges in China that were real competing for the winning spot. One of them was BTCC, which was co-founded by Bobby Lee, who was the brother of Charlie Lee, who was the creator of Litecoin. God, I can't even remember there was BTCC, and there was OKX, and there was one more in China at the time. There were 3 exchanges all competing, and it's actually slipped my memory. Maybe someone in the live chat can remember. There was OKX, there was BTCC, and there was another exchange that was the real contender at the time. And one of the people that was on the board and part of the team at OKX was CZ. He ended up leaving OKX eventually and was actually at a conference that I was at in an area in China called Chengdu. And the CZ was at that conference. I was presenting at that conference in Chengdu. It is one of the provinces in China. And CZ was hearing about, there was a dinner that night, and one of the guests was CZ as he was just planning his next moves. And he heard about these things called ICOs, and this was right at the beginning. And so within a couple of weeks, CZ put together a white paper, launched a token called Binance Coin, and used his knowledge that he was working on for the years prior to build an exchange. And within 1 year, that became the largest exchange in the cryptocurrency market. And CZ has been contributing. So you can see that the combination of the first 2, which is a theme that you'll see throughout, is combining business with investing in private equity, investing in cryptocurrencies, and making a bet that worked out, really. So that's number 2. Number 1 was Joseph Lubin. Number 2 is CZ, the founder of Binance. And number 3 is a friend of mine called Matthew Roziak. And Matthew was involved in Bitcoin since 2011. He started investing in Bitcoin and started using some of his Bitcoin to invest in a portfolio of private equity. He now runs, was part of a company called Block, which is doing more enterprise level things with blockchain. But he also founded a venture capital fund called Tally Capital, which was a precursor to blockchain capital. And Matthew was one of the very early people involved in the Bitcoin Foundation, and really just funding many of the companies. And so in the early days, when no one was really investing in the industry, you'd always see Matthew's name. And he was actually one of the advisors that was listed on the white paper for the Binance token sale as well. And Matthew has just been a very well diversified investor, but really keeping that core within Bitcoin, building a business, and that puts him as a spot in the top 10 investors in the Bitcoin. And when I say Bitcoin as well, you'll notice that things like Ethereum, so Bitcoin was the foundation. There's lots of people that talk about this rivalry between different cryptocurrencies, this rivalry between Bitcoin and Ethereum. But really, Ethereum was a project that if you go back far enough, because I remember it very well, that was completely 100% funded by the Bitcoin community. So the Ethereum original token sale was sold to Bitcoiners, and the only way to invest was with Bitcoin. And the project almost went bust because Bitcoin went into a bear market. And that bear market almost led to Ethereum, which raised about $15 million worth of Bitcoin, almost just couldn't get the code out there and just couldn't get this off the ground. They got it out, and everyone received these little files. It wasn't like it is now when you might have invested in an initial exchange offering or something like that, where the tokens are delivered to you. You had to be a bit of a technical guy. You would receive this JSON or this file that Vitalik and the Ethereum team or the Ethereum Foundation would have sent to you. And then you'd have to figure out how to decrypt this file in order to claim your original Ethereum tokens. As a contributor, I remember that very well. Originally, didn't even bother with it for quite a while, but then Ethereum started to actually get listed on exchanges, and then it hit $1, and then the rest is history as the token sale actually really accelerated it into its status. But Anthony Dioro was another one of those people. Again, what his strategy was took some of his Bitcoin, put it into Ethereum, got allocated some of those Ethereum by being a part of the Ethereum Foundation, and then use that to invest in lots of different tokens and private equity as well. So Anthony Dioro was another one of those people that you'll see constantly mentioned in that. The next one, so just to recap, we've done 1, 2, 3, 4. Shame you can't see the slides right now. Fifth on the list, I have Brian Armstrong. So Brian Armstrong was a Bitcoiner. He was around during the 2011 phase and decided to take some of his Bitcoin, invest it into building a company called Coinbase, which is now a company I should disclose, I am a shareholder in Coinbase. It's now currently worth $8 billion. And it's set, so it's looking to actually float on a stock market and be one of the first to maybe float on an American stock market at the moment. But Brian Armstrong also took a position of his wealth, put it over to Ethereum, and pivoted what was a completely Bitcoin company into a Bitcoin and Ethereum company, and now a multi-currency company. But Brian Armstrong, again, invested in lots of private equity, invested in Bitcoin, invested in Ethereum, and then started to spread some of that wealth as well to build a portfolio in lots of different projects. Next one on the list is Roger Ver, controversial character in the Bitcoin community. But I will never forget Roger Ver for what he did in the early days. Roger Ver was actually probably the first one to really take some of their Bitcoin, got involved, right time, right place in 2011, was involved, and started to invest a significant amount of it into funding the companies that were building for Bitcoin. I remember him investing in blockchain.com, another company that I am a shareholder on, for full disclosure. But he went for the decentralized wallet rather than going for the centralized wallet through Coinbase. And obviously, the Coinbase went on to become that $8 billion unicorn, or 8 times unicorn, whatever you want to call it. But Roger Ver was actually promoting Bitcoin in the early days, when Bitcoin was literally did not have enough liquidity, when things like the Mt. Gox crash happened. He was actually, in many cases, taking his Bitcoin, holding up the price, and really promoting Bitcoin at a time when absolutely nobody cared. Invested in lots and lots of private equity, and then really stuck with Bitcoin until the scaling debate happened, at which point, when there was a lot of split in the community, eventually started to channel his energy into getting behind other projects because he didn't believe that Bitcoin was going the direction that he wanted it to go. But Roger Ver, you got to put his name down as one of those top 10 investors in crypto or Bitcoin, whatever you want to call it, for this industry. The next is Barry Silbert. So Barry Silbert was somewhat late to the table. He actually created a company called Second Market. Interestingly, doing similar things, not quite what we're doing at Bank to the Future, but at Bank to the Future, we now have a secondary market where you can actually buy and sell shares in many of the largest companies in crypto so that you can do what many of these top 10 investors did and actually build a portfolio of companies in the Bitcoin market. And Barry Silbert, he later created a company, so he invested in Bitcoin, started looking for all the different startups. We've co-invested in many deals together, probably over 50 of the companies that I've invested in or we've done deals through in Bank to the Future also secured early stage funding from either Barry Silbert as an individual or through his organization, Digital Currency Group. It now owns one of the, the premium media outlets in Bitcoin, which is CoinDesk, and is very well diversified across the entire industry. And we've done many co-investments together. But Barry Silbert, same thing, went into Bitcoin. One of the things I think he got wrong was actually for the right ideological reason, but turned out to be a bad thing. And one of the things that I have found in the crypto market is that you could be completely right about something, and yet the logical thing doesn't necessarily happen. So I've learned to really question some of the things in the crypto market and learn how to build an investment approach based upon that. And Barry Silbert, he actually, when the Ethereum hard fork happened, which is where some of the Ethereum Foundation people put a lot of money into this project. It was built upon Ethereum called the DAO, and it was aiming to be a decentralized venture capital fund, and just completely forgot about securities laws and just tried to say that we don't care about the laws, and created something called Coder's Law. And in the Coder's Law, a hacker actually utilized the smart contract to steal most of the money and drain most of the money from the DAO contract. And lots of the Ethereum Foundation people put a lot of Ethereum into it. And the Ethereum Foundation rolled back the chain. And Barry Silbert actually decided to back the original chain, which is now called Ethereum Classic, and built a whole trust structure around it. And Ethereum Classic, it's constantly being attacked right now. It's a very insecure chain, and everything moved to the new chain for Ethereum, what we call Ethereum now. And so Barry Silbert, anyway, he now also got involved in the industry whereby traditional institutional money can invest in Bitcoin via a structure. And he has that through Grayscale and different things. But moral of the story, invested in Bitcoin, invested in private equity, did it for the long term, and started diversifying into different projects, which may work out or may not work out. The next is obviously Cameron and Tyler Winklevoss. They were introduced to Bitcoin through a friend of mine called Charlie Shrem. Charlie Shrem was actually the creator of a company called BitInstant. And BitInstant was an on-ramp so that people could much more quickly buy Bitcoin from Mt. Gox. At one stage, Mt. Gox is a defunct exchange at the moment, but it was one of the first companies in Bitcoin. Bank to the Future was one of the first ones in crypto. We were focused on the security side, but there were other companies like BitInstant, Coinbase came later, and many other, BitInstant was a way and on-ramps onto Mt. Gox, which was the very first exchange. At one stage, had about 70% of all the Bitcoins circulating. And he introduced and got capital. He was trying to get funding for BitInstant. And he introduced the Winklevoss twins, which were fresh off the back of suing Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook, receiving a $65 million settlement for their claim that they created Facebook, and Mark Zuckerberg copied his idea. That settlement, a chunk of that was through Charlie Shrim, who introduced them to Bitcoin. They invested some of that into BitInstant. That company didn't work out because it got taken down because some of the funds that they put into Mt. Gox turned out to be used for money laundering. So that led to Charlie Shrim actually having to serve some time in prison. That's another interesting story. The day that Charlie Shrim got arrested, he was on his way to the Bitcoin conference in Miami to give a presentation. The FBI took him down. On the very same day, HSBC was caught laundering truckloads of dollars from the Mexican drug cartel, and nobody got arrested for that. Billions and billions of dollars, and HSBC just paid their fine, moved on, nobody went to prison. At the same time, BitInstant ended up transferring some money that went on to go to Mt. Gox, that went on to go into the Silk Road, and Charlie Shrim served his time for that. But anyway, tangent away. The Winklevoss twins, they actually, they purchased a significant chunk of Bitcoin, started investing in private equity, then set up Winklevoss Capital, which has also been investing in many of the companies in the industry in Bitcoin, and then went on to create Gemini Exchange, which is a more regulated exchange in the United States. You could put them down. Allegedly, they have over 100,000 Bitcoin, and they should, instead of thanking Charlie Shrim, they're actually in a court case trying to make settlements, which is another story. Again, there's lots of interesting characters that involved in Bitcoin. Don't take this as an endorsement or anything like that. I've just met some interesting people over the years and sharing with you some of the stories that you might not know, because they all played their role in getting the market to where it is today through deploying their capital into the different parts of the ecosystem. Next one is Brock Pierce. Now, Brock Pierce is a bit of a controversial character. He's currently running for president of the United States, interestingly. And Brock Pierce ruffles up the feathers of different people, but he has actually made some incredibly savvy moves in this industry. Brock Pierce has actually been incredibly open-minded and made some really, really big calls, and probably got more right than any other investor that I know in the cryptocurrency market. And so he obviously he bet big in Bitcoin. You'll see a common theme in many of these people that were there earlier. They were into the gaming industry, and there was this Magic the Gathering online gaming, different industries, and many people got in through the gaming industry. Brock Pierce was one of those people, and invested big in Bitcoin, put together, co-founded Blockchain Capital, which was one of the first venture capital funds that started investing in the industry. We co-invested with Blockchain Capital in many, many deals, and many companies like BitPay, the company that was bringing Bitcoin to Africa through remittance markets, the countless companies that we did at Bank to the Future. I personally invested in many of these companies as well. But Brock Pierce was well diversified in the private equity side. And then he started bet big on Ethereum, very open-minded, created some technology that he actually went on to become Tether, that was sold to Bitfinex, or Bitfinex's sister company, Tether. So he created the stablecoin, backed Ethereum, and backed all the Bitcoin companies in the beginning, backed Bitcoin, then actually went on to use some of his wealth to back many different parts of the ecosystem as well, and co-founded an exchange that went on to become BitThumb, one of the largest exchanges in South Korea, or was the investor and backer behind it, and has made many, many moves that have turned out to be pretty intuitive. and then just went on to actually start to focus on token sales and funded and was a part of EOS, which raised approximately billions and billions in the largest token sale in history. So Brock Pierce has made some pretty incredible moves over the years, and now really focused on philanthropy and running for president and whatever floats his boat at the moment. And then the final one that I wanted to cover was actually Chris Larson. Chris Larson, there was actually a gentleman called Jeb McCaleb, and Jeb McCaleb actually was was the creator of two projects, one XRP, the Ripple cryptocurrency token, and also Mt. Gox. And Jeb McCaleb actually sold Mt. Gox to Mark Capellas. And Mark Capellas is the person that obviously lost everyone's money in those 850,000 Bitcoin heists that actually happened. But actually, Mark Capellas, when he bought the cryptocurrency exchange Mt. Gox, it was missing 80,000 Bitcoin, which later Mark Capellas asked Jeb McCaleb about, and he said, yeah, these were worth, under very, very fractions of a cent at this time. And he was like, yeah, you better buy those 80,000 Bitcoins back. The price went through the roof, and it turned out that Mark Capellas actually bought a Ponzi scheme called Mt. Gox that never recovered from that situation. Now, at the same time, Jeb McCaleb created the XRP cryptocurrency known as Ripple, and then later a company came along. I am a shareholder in Ripple Labs, the company that is the largest token holder of XRP, and started to actually turn this XRP cryptocurrency into something that could be used for international remittances and try and compete with SWIFT to actually speed up using cryptocurrency the pain of international payments. Chris Larson was one of the co-founders and early people in the company, and obviously from that has a massive XRP position, which later went on to become the third largest cryptocurrency in the market, and therefore turned himself into a multi-billionaire. So that is the 10 people. Love them, hate them, think of what you want, but they made some serious moves in the cryptocurrency market and led them to become some of the more notable investors in cryptocurrency. So now, what can you learn from that? I wish I had my slide presentation, but I don't have it, so we'll try and do another run of this with the slides in the future. And then we'll head over to your questions to take the AMA. But just before we do that, Azad is going to be picking out your questions, so thanks for joining us. What do they all have in common? Well, the things that they have in common is three things. The first, they were all long-term investors rather than traders. Notice that nobody traded their way to being a top 10 investor in the Bitcoin and cryptocurrency market. They were all long-term investors, and they took a long-term approach, and they allowed the investments to actually mature and ride out. So they were all investors rather than traders. The second thing that they did is they all built and invested in long-term private equity. So they found a cryptocurrency that worked out. They allowed it to ride out. They didn't overtrade. And they all used some of their to either invest it into a company and build a company, or they invested into private equity so that they didn't have to build their own company. Instead, they just invested in other people building companies. So, rather than, my personal story, got into Bitcoin, built Bank to the Future, and then diversified across lots of different private equity and gave it time to mature and didn't overtrade. Same thing with all of these people in the top 10. The other thing they did is they all got behind a singular cryptocurrency and then diversified as they started, their position and wealth started to increase as well. So it enhanced their position. So in recap, I'm just going to go through those top 10 investors in case some of you missed the beginning. You can obviously go back to recall the early part. But one of those is Joseph Lubin, made wealth mainly through Ethereum, private equity, built a business called Consensus. CZ got into Bitcoin, got into cryptocurrency, worked his way through the industry, built his own business, backed Bitcoin, created a token associated with Binance, and then actually started to diversify into lots of private equity and digital tokens. Matthew Roziak got into Bitcoin, diversified into private equity, held it long term, waited for it to mature, and then diversified across lots of digital currency projects. Anthony Diorio, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and then diversified into different projects. Brian Armstrong got into Bitcoin, built a business, diversified in private equity, and then started backing lots of different projects. Roger Ver got into Bitcoin, got into private equity, built a diversified portfolio, waited for it to mature, then got into different projects and different cryptocurrencies. Barry Silbert got into Bitcoin, diversified across private equity, then started to get involved in lots of different projects. Winklevoss twins got into Bitcoin, diversified into private equity, set up their own fund, then diversified and built their own business in the Bitcoin market. Brock Pierce got into Bitcoin, diversified into private equity, invested in Ethereum, diversified into more, got into several trends that he got right, including stable coins, including exchanges, and including the token sale that went on to raise the most amount ever. So couple all of those 10 investors together and love him or hate him, but Brock Pierce has probably forecasted the most amount of moves and probably got on the right side of more trends than any other investor in the cryptocurrency market. And then finally, Chris Larson went into XRP, didn't follow the same route. My guess is, obviously I don't know this for certain, built a company around that and then diversified into lots of other different areas. The three things in common in recap before we start taking questions: all long-term investors rather than traders, and built and invested in businesses in the industry through private equity, and got behind a particular cryptocurrency and then diversified into other projects. So that's the makeup that I've seen. There were more people that I could have included, but these are, I think, the notable people. So hope you enjoyed that. And now we're going to head over to Azad while I take a quick water break. Azad is on a different channel, so maybe he might be a bit quiet. So when he starts to pick out some of the questions that we're going to cover, let us know if it's too quiet, and I will repeat back the question. I think we covered approximately, we've got about 25 minutes to take as many questions as we can. So Azad, what do you got for us?
Yeah, we've got a few questions. So who is the next big player you want to invest in Bitcoin?
That's a really good question. And the answer is all of them. So, you know, the reason that I created Bank to the Future and co-founded it was actually because I wanted to be really diversified across the industry. And there just simply wasn't another way of doing that without actually, and there were no venture capitalists at the time. I like to actually back businesses through private equity, allow them to mature long term. And I also like to co-invest alongside other people that have made really smart moves in this. And I'm not sure exactly which ones, because I've invested in a lot of rubbish along the way as well, that turned out to be complete hot gas. And so the game is that you're not sure which ones are going to succeed. I'm not arrogant enough to think I know exactly which ones will succeed, but I build an investment philosophy and investment principles, and then I stick with them and give them enough time to mature and try and back team with all I do. So for me, it's not about the idea, it's all about the team. And I'm sure there's more and more rising stars, and hopefully I've invested in a few of them more recently that haven't made it to this list yet. And by the beauty of investing in private equity is that you don't need to build the business yourself. If I look back at it, probably generated a lot more wealth through investing in the companies, investing in the industry than actually building. But building is also another very exciting thing and gives us lots of access to deal flow through Bank to the Future. So I haven't got the exact name yet, but hopefully I'll be backing a few of those and they'll be making it to the next list. Next question, Azad.
Yeah, how desperate is the UK banking system regarding bailing in at this stage?
The question is, how desperate is the UK banking system regarding bailing in? The interesting thing is, in the last financial crisis, the UK banking system actually became mainly owned by the UK government. So the UK government was actually bailing out to prevent them needing to bail in. For those of you not familiar with the jargon, bailout means that taxpayers' money was used in order to recapitalize the banks so that they could continue to pay their extortionate wages, the banking bonuses, and hypothecate the Ponzi scheme so that governments could create the illusion of economic growth in another 10-year Ponzi scheme cycle so that we could get to this situation where we are today, where the banks look like they're more capitalized, but really they've been going through a process of siphoning off their assets. Now, what's interesting is I do not think that we are going to get a bail-in. The reason for that is because I think that we're going to have bailouts via a central bank digital currency. So if you're not familiar with my work, head over to my YouTube channel, Simon Dixon, hit subscribe, hit the bell symbol, I'll notify you, but you can go back through the archives. And I talked about way back on the YouTube channel, it goes through right through the history from before Bitcoin, when I was publishing videos, before I spoke at the very first Bitcoin conference. And in 2016 is when I first talked about a central bank digital currency being radical banking reform and actually implementing much of what I thought was going to happen when I wrote the book, Bank to the Future, Protect Your Future Before Governments Go Bust in 2010, 2011. So I don't think we're going to get bail-ins at the moment. I think instead, we're actually just going to have central bank digital currencies issued in proportion to the amount that the bank would have gone bankrupt for. And also because the government is still a shareholder in many of these banks through the last 2008 restructuring and Ponzi scheme, I don't think you're going to see those bail-ins. I think you're going to see bailouts, but in a new form through a central bank digital currency, where they actually disrupt and allow those banks to go bust, and you end up with a digital wallet rather than some of the stock in the bank. So what tends to happen in bail-ins is the bank just takes your deposit, uses it to recapitalize its reserves, and then sometimes issues you with other assets like maybe stock in the bank or something like that, which is essentially what it did to the UK government in a slightly different format. So that's what I think we're going to be seeing next. Next question, Azad.
Yeah, I think we're getting a lot of people who are speculating maybe, or just very curious as to which country will be the first to announce that they're actually holding Bitcoin. Do you have any predictions or any thoughts on that, Simon?
Yeah, I created a video on this on my YouTube channel on this very subject, and I talked about the different types of central banks and which ones would most likely, and I split the central banks into 3 different types of categories. The ones that are in desperation, the ones that are the incumbents, and the ones that have the most to gain. I'm trying to remember what I called that video. For those of you that have watched those videos, maybe you remember there was a video that I published on this very topic. And I know I talked about how Japan is perfectly positioned to capitalize on this situation and gain significant power. And one of the things that Japan doesn't have is this obviously was the inventor of QE, but it's building a lot of regulations to support our industry. Because it was, the country that hosted Mt. Gox and was also involved in a company that ended up with an even bigger a hack, which was CoinCheck. They've been building lots of regulations to try and position themselves. The banks have been mining Bitcoin in some of the private banks. There's a really interesting community. If you walk down the streets in Tokyo, you see like Bitcoin symbols everywhere. And it's got the most merchant adoption as well. So it's a really interesting country. Now, they invented quantitative easing and really moved to a very socialist style way of organizing the economy. And they haven't built significant gold reserves. So the countries that I think are going to win or have a seat at the table in the upcoming monetary renegotiation are the countries with the highest gold reserves. That be the United States of America, China, Russia, and Europe through basically Germany representing Europe. But Japan hasn't built those significant gold reserves to get a seat at the table. So if we entered into a currency war, then Bitcoin could become a tool for central banks to use. And I created a whole video on the different types of central banks on this. So check out the archive videos and you can watch that. I think there's quite a few that I've done over the time. But I think Japan's a very interesting country in terms of that. But I do think some of the smaller central banks will get on the table as more of an opportunistic, and then Japan will join that race later. Next question is up.
Yeah, we got a question. Yeah, we have a question around Bank to the Future. So there was I guess there's an update you may want to share with everyone here about Bank to the Future's funding round. One of the questions that's related to Bank to the Future is, how many companies do you get per year approaching Bank to the Future for collaboration? And how do you choose which ones to work with?
So this is a question on Bank to the Future. The question is, how many companies do we get approach us a year, and how many do we collaborate with? We get approximately, I haven't looked at the most updated numbers. I'd have to speak to some of my team that actually, the investment committee that deals with these applications. But we get a lot. At one stage, we used to get about 30 applications a day. Approximately 1% of them will get through the process to actually be listed on the platform. But we go through a lot of deals. Some we get right, some we get wrong. We looked at our overall statistics, and approximately when investing in private equity, you tend to have to make 10 investments. One of them hopefully becomes a unicorn. And a few of them will succeed, but not necessarily become a unicorn. And the vast majority of them will go bankrupt and go bust and not succeed. So that's the real game of investing in private equity. How do we actually filter through those? So we usually use our industry knowledge as an initial filter. Our investors reaching out to us and telling us the types of deals they'd like to see. Then it would go through a due diligence process. And then it would go through an investment committee to determine whether our investor community would be particularly interested in investing in that deal. Then we stick it on the primary market, and that's where investors can subscribe to the initial allocation. They go off, they try and increase the value of their company, and then later, if they get valuation increases, they can go onto our secondary market if they succeed. And that's where people can sell at the latest valuations rather than the earlier valuations, should there be sufficient liquidity. Next question.
Thank you, Simon. Yeah, people are very excited about Retirement Plan B. Do you have any updates for them in terms of the progress being made?
Absolutely. So the question is, people are asking for an update on Retirement Plan B. We actually brought in approximately 300 new shareholders to Bank to the Future that ended up investing in our company, our parent company. And the goal with bringing in those shareholders was actually to pre-launch Retirement Plan B as well. So many of those that actually invested. If you try to invest, by the way, reach out to Bank to the Future support because there still is an unlisted if you miss that opportunity. And the shareholders will actually get the first preview of the free video series. We want to test out on shareholders whether you found it interesting and valuable. We're then going to take that free video series that we launched to our shareholders, try and add a bit more production value. We're really excited about it. The free video series is going to be guiding you exactly how to invest in the Great Depression of 2020 and build a retirement plan B centered around the lessons of our experience of who became ultra wealthy, and many of the mistakes and lessons from the 10 investors that we covered in this video, and also building a community of 100,000 investors, or almost 100,000 investors, all building wealth in the industry or investing in the industry. Using that, so I think we'll do an initial launch of the free video series to our shareholders. Then we'll take the lessons that we learned from that, what they gained out of it, what they found, what feedback they can give us. and then we'll do a public launch of the free video series. There's going to be 4 videos, and we're not holding back on anything. We're going all out to create a really great video series for those that might not have the financial situation to join the retirement plan B. But for those of you that want to spend 7 weeks with us, we're going to be doing that around about the November time. November we'll be doing the whole end of October, November, then December is when we'll be doing 7 weeks with clients to put them through, those that actually want hand-holding through the process. And prior to that, we'll be releasing the free video series for those that may not be in a financial position to join the actual program. Everything's in progress. We are having the videos all edited up right now. We're really excited about bringing that to you. So thank you. Looking forward to getting your feedback on that. Next question.
Okay, here's just a light one. A lot of people, once upon a time, used to talk a lot about the pseudonym Satoshi Nakamoto. Do you have any thoughts and opinions on who the original founder of Bitcoin is?
Yeah, so the question is, who does Simon Dixon think the original founder of Bitcoin is? The original alias name is Satoshi Nakamoto. I do think that it was a group of people. I actually just released a video, if you head over to my YouTube channel, and there was a video from an interview with Cointelegraph where they were interviewing me on my earliest experiences with Bitcoin. And I told some of the stories about this hackathon I went to with a bunch of people that were coding up Bitcoin, and they were wearing anonymous masks and hoodies, and you had to have a special code after the first Bitcoin conference. So there's some interesting clues around there. The person that introduced me to Bitcoin was living in a squat in London. And I do think it was a group of people. I don't think it was one person. And I think the private key holders that own the 1 million Bitcoin spread across in the Satoshi wallet, I personally believe that they have passed away. I think one of the people involved in the original Satoshi Nakamoto has passed away. His name is Hal Finney. There obviously were, if we want to get more controversial, the person that claims to be Satoshi Nakamoto in the public right now is obviously Craig Wright, who is actually being taken to court right now in a very comical situation, where one of my good friends, Andreas Antonopoulos, is actually testifying in the court case around how he can't own those wallets. But a really interesting scenario happened with Craig Wright, where he actually claimed to own all these wallets through a trust structure. Interesting things to learn there, and many interesting things that we'll be teaching in the retirement plan B around tax planning, because definitely did some efficient structure in there. But he put it all into something called the Tulip Trust, allegedly. And he got himself in a situation where he either lied about owning these wallet addresses, because a bunch of people put a cryptographic message in those wallets that he claimed, saying Craig Wright is a fraud. Then he claimed to own some of the wallets that actually hold some of the coins that were stolen from Mt. Gox. So if he proves in court that he owns those wallets, then he will probably immediately go to prison for hacking Mt. Gox and stealing client money. But if he doesn't own it, then he has proven that he's not Satoshi Nakamoto or fabricated some of those ownership structures. And it's a very comical story. So, I do believe that maybe he was a T-boy or something around, involved in something to do with that. But my guess is that that's just simply not the case from all the evidence that's actually coming. There are also other people that passed away, and it's become an interesting court case for those of you that like some Geordie Shore style, trash TV. Then follow the Craig Wright case if you like to indulge in some things. Preferably you indulge in things that actually help you a little bit more, but we also need to have some comical things on the side that help us along. And there's no shortage of craziness been involved in this industry for such a long time. But sorry, I don't know who Satoshi Nakamoto is. And the group of people that I believe were involved in it, I think they deserve a Nobel Prize for actually creating, and I hope they continue to remain anonymous, because I don't think it's too important, but it's also creates some interesting scenarios. But yeah, I don't know who Satoshi Nakamoto is. Next question.
Okay, I guess it's the final question, and then give your sort of updates and positive ending. Do you think central banking is monetary socialism, an institution of financial slavery?
So 2 questions. The first question is, do you think that central banking is monetary socialism? And the second question was, is it financial slavery, if I'm quoting that correctly?
Is it an institution of financial slavery?
An institution of financial slavery. So let's take the first one. Is it socialism? No, I think it's a massive sucking up of the country's wealth and assets in questionable structures that do not redistribute those funds in any kind of socialist structure. In fact, it is sucking all of the wealth and all of the assets out of the people in what has been one of the largest rich-poor wealth divides and wealth inequality in history, that actually needs to lead to some kind of redistribution, and really, propping up the private creation of money, and is more of a crony capitalist free market system. Is not the free market, but it is more of a free market than what comes next with central bank digital currencies, because essentially private banks are creating their digital currency every time they issue a loan, and that is, and then they get to recapitalize and suck up assets if you can't repay it, and then the central bank, as the lender of last resort, gets to be involved in money creation programs like quantitative easing to suck up a lot of those assets, and is really just taking everything onto its balance sheet, when really it could have been the government doing that, and that would have been more of a socialist system and a redistribution. But instead they outsourced money creation to the central bank and the private banking sector through that. Is it predatory? I think that there are ways of central banks actually becoming less predatory. I do believe that creating money not as debt is a net improvement, but the type of money they're going to create is actually going to be more of a communist style currency, whereby they end up controlling all of our privacies, our sovereign freedoms, our liberties, and the central bank digital currency will be connected to automated tax collection, disputes, vaccinations, all sorts of things, as the government implements its agenda through central bank digital currencies, and being able to connect your passport to these singular central bank digital currencies. So I don't think that they're going to suck assets. I think they're going to take away freedoms and liberties. And thank God that there is alternative exits from the traditional financial system, where people can own their own money, spend their own money, and benefit from a monetary policy that can't be manipulated, can't be changed, called Bitcoin. And then we can end on that positive note. As again, really excited. Thank you to all the shareholders that joined us at Bank to the Future. If you missed that round, feel free to reach out to the support team at Bank to the Future if you tried to get in there. Really excited about helping people build a retirement plan be centered around Bitcoin, releasing that free video series, which is coming. It's all in motion. Team excited about it. Shame I couldn't get you the slides. We actually worked really hard to put together like a beautiful slide presentation, but maybe I'll give this presentation on somebody else's. Check out, I was on Kaiser Report recently. Also, I was on Real Vision. Alex from Nuggets News just reached out to me. He wants to get on the show. We had a cancellation of the show. Azad's been lining up a few things. But we got slightly behind because we've been really focusing on getting these videos together and giving you something really solid and really concrete that you can use on how I will be investing $1 million on my personal savings at the end of this year, using exactly the strategies that we will share in that free video series, and looking forward to ending the year joining a group of you that want to join us on the Retirement Plan B online coaching program as well. So do remember, no matter how bad it gets, you are alive at one of the most interesting and exciting times in financial history. Unfortunately, it's going to be disastrous for some, and I want you to be on the right side of that. And if we can get as many people to do that, so I'd really appreciate your help. If you enjoyed this content, please do like it. If you haven't liked it already, please hit that like button right now. It helps us get through these challenges with YouTube and shadow bans and all that type of stuff. So please do like it. Please do subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'll be here this time next week discovering a new topic. Let me know what topics you would like to see. Tweet me at Simon Dixon Twit. Let me know what you thought, and share this with your friends, family, and loved ones, because I really want to give information that helps you get on the right side of these trends if I can. Can't give financial advice, can't give legal advice, can't give tax advice, but I can tell you what I'm up to, what I'm doing, and put my money where my mouth is, and keep you up to date through this YouTube channel if you subscribe as everything unfolds. So thank you for your time. Over and out, and we'll try and get all the technology working better this time next week, and studio on its way, so production value is going to get better. Hopefully the sound's improved, and yeah, look forward to seeing you on the next one. If you've got anything you want to say in the live chat, I'll try and hang around for a little bit as well, so let me know and I'll read some of those comments in the live chat, or if you're watching the recording, leave a comment, and I do jump into those, trying to get more active there. So thank you for your time. Over and out.